chapter 18, verses 1 to 8. Then Jesus told his disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up. He said, "In a certain town there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared what people thought. And there was a widow in that town who kept coming to him with the plea, 'Grant me justice against my adversary.' For some time he refused, but finally he said to himself, 'Even though I don't fear God or care what people think, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice, so that she won't eventually come and attack me.' And the Lord said, 'Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones who cried out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will see that they get justice, and quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth?" May God bless the reading of his word.
Thank you, Ellie. Boy, I love this parable because we are given so many important passages. We are given so many. Oh, look at this. During our lives, we're given so many important things that we need to get accomplished in this world. God gives us tasks to do. God has ideas for things He wants us to get done in this world. Sometimes they're with our jobs, sometimes it's with our family, sometimes it's in our service to other people. There are lots of things that we are expected to get done. And how do we do it? What are some of the ingredients for getting things done in this world, especially the things God is calling us to do, the journeys God's calling us to start? Well, I like the Calvin Coolidge quote. This is from 90 years ago. But Calvin Coolidge, when he was talking about getting things accomplished in this world, he said, "Nothing replaces persistence." He said, talent doesn't replace it. There are plenty of people that have talent that never get anything done. Genius doesn't replace it, because people not recognizing genius, boy, that's a cliche that happens all the time in our society. Not even education replaces persistence. There are plenty of educated people who never get anything done, never try anything, never get anything accomplished in this world. Persistence is the one thing, one ingredient you must have in this world to get things done, especially to get good things done. Because whenever you try to do something good, and this is strange, but every time you try to do something good, the bigger it is, the better it is for the world, the better it is, the more resistance you will find. You're going to have an adversary fighting against you whenever you try to get anything done. Now, we know that this is something that is important because we hear it all our lives. Remember hearing, if at first you don't succeed, try again. That's one of the first lessons I think I remember in my life. I don't remember exactly where I heard it, but boy, I remember hearing it a whole bunch growing up. You have to be persistent. Well, it shouldn't surprise us then, because we see Jesus here then telling a story about somebody who showed great persistence in her life. And she accomplished something simply because of her willingness to stay at it, to get it done. You see, she was a widow, and the implication here in this story is she's having some financial problems. You see, this happened all the time back in Jesus' day. Widows, when their husbands would die, all the resources, all the money, all the property, all the wealth went to the nearest male relative. Didn't go to the wife. And so the male relative would have all this inheritance, and by tradition and by law, that person, that man, was supposed to take care of the widow and any of the dependents of the man who died. That was the tradition. But of course, what happens, since we are broken people, since we are selfish people, since it's so tempting not to do what we're supposed to do, time and time again, men would just forget about that responsibility to the widow. And that seems to be the case here. Her husband had died. She was supposed to be taken care of. Whoever was doing that wasn't doing it. And so she went to the one person who could help her, the judge in her community. Unfortunately, as Jesus said, this judge did not fear God and he did not respect people. He didn't care about, it seems, his job, doing a good job. That wasn't important to him. He seemed to be very selfish and focused on himself, and so he didn't even want to hear from the woman. Didn't even let her plead her case to him. So what did the woman do? Well, at this point, I think 9 out of 10 times, I would just give up. Just throw my hands up and say, okay, well, I tried, but she didn't do that. And perhaps she was in one of those situations where she couldn't, because she absolutely depended on this guy's decision. She didn't have an alternative. She didn't have another way to go. She couldn't just settle for doing something else. Yes, this is what God wanted, but gosh, it's going to be hard, it's going to be difficult. I'll do this easier thing instead. That's often the choice that I would make in my life. Let's just do, okay, fine, whatever, let's just do this easier thing. She didn't accept that. That's his job. This is what God wants him to do. She was sure of that because that was written in God's law that he was supposed to do it. And so she kept coming back to it, day after day. And finally, she got what she wanted. And she didn't get it because the judge had a change of heart. He didn't all of a sudden get religion. He didn't all of a sudden start caring about the woman or caring about his responsibility that God had given him. No, he relented, and Jesus makes this clear, because she was pestering him. Oh, I'll give in to this woman simply to get her out of my hair. And that's why this gets accomplished. It's not some great change of heart. And wow, what a great lesson that is for us. What a great lesson that is for our world, because isn't that true? That is so often how the world works, right? Something difficult, something hard, and you have obstacles put in your way, and the only way to get what is right, what God wants, what is best for you, for your family, at work, wherever it may be, is to be persistent, to work to overcome that obstacle. It's something that we have to do in this world. Simply, there is no choice if we want to get certain things accomplished. It is the gift of persistence. And boy, we need it here at church, absolutely, to be persistent in what we do. Because some things do not come easy. And some of the most important things we do as a church do not come easy to us. We think about when we are trying to recruit youth sponsors. We are trying to recruit teachers to do the one thing, one of the things in this church, we can't hire someone else to do. That's not possible. And if we did do that, we really wouldn't be the church anymore, because we're not supposed to hire people to teach people about Jesus and to teach people about the gospel. That makes us something else other than the church at that point, if we're not doing it ourselves. But it's a difficult task to do, because not everybody's called to teach, not everybody has the gift or the talent for it, and especially not everybody is willing to do it. And so we have to be persistent in that search for people to do this, one of the most important things we do here at the church. And you know what? We've got to find people who are willing to be persistent. Not to just teach once or twice, but to be willing to come back and do it over and over and over again. It's true in the church, and it's true in our culture, in our society. There's simply no profession, no job more important than that of teaching. And recognizing that and remembering it and honoring those who give their persistence, of all the things they can give their persistence to, they give it to teaching. What a high calling that is, and what a wonderful blessing. I mentioned this morning, and it just kind of came to me. I thought, thinking about how we have one day a year here that we call Teacher Appreciation Sunday. I'm thinking about that, and I think that is wrong. I think there is something bad about taking this thing that we should be doing every week, that we should be making a point of all the time, and making it just one Sunday a year. No, our teachers should be and should feel appreciated every Sunday. And if we are going to have a special day for it, it shouldn't be just once a year or twice a year. It should be 4 times a year or 6 times a year. We recognize these people that are doing this important work, and we recognize them not only for their gifts, their talents, counts, the difference they make, but also for their persistence. We require it. We need persistence. We need it in our lives, we need it in our families, and we can give it to whatever we want. Well, that's the one thing about persistence. Persistence itself isn't a virtue. Persistence can be used either way. In fact, if you look in the Bible and you do a word search for persistence, most often it's listed in association, or it's there in association with doing something wrong. You'll see things like, why do you persist in your evil? The prophet will ask. Or, why do you persist in your rebellion against God? Or the Apostle Paul will ask, why do you persist in your unbelief? See, we can throw persistence toward anything we want to. If we choose, we can be persistently bigoted. I am a persistent bigot, and no matter what life tells me or what I hear, I am going to persist in that hatred for other people, in that ugliness toward other people, and toward other members, others of God's children. Or we can persist in laziness. We can persist in hatred. We can persist in glumness, in showing the world nothing but our scowl each day. We can choose what we give our persistence to, and so that becomes our question. What is worthy of our persistence? When we think about that a moment, what is worthy of our persistence? Well, certainly our families are worthy of our persistence, aren't they? Our friendships, the relationships in our lives, we know that if we put more into them, more comes out for us. They grow, they become stronger. And so yes, being persistent in our relationships is something that's certainly worth giving our persistence to. Our work. So look here, everybody here knows work you have to give your persistence to. You have to show up on time every day, day after day. You need to do that and continue to do that and continue to be persistent in your work. And that's not the extra mile, that's just the basics, right? That's just ground level for what has to be done. We have to be persistent in our work, and the more we are, the more we get out of our work, the better it becomes for us. So yeah, we can give our persistence to lots of different things, but of course what Jesus is talking here is being persistent in our faith and the way we practice it, the way we express it. And we know that. We can be persistent. The persistence we get, because I look around and here is a group of people who are persistent in worship. Persistent in worship. Knowing that, coming to worship just one time or two times, that's not enough. We need to keep coming here. We need to be here. When that music is played that especially speaks to us, when that scripture is read that is the scripture that we need to hear, when the sermon is preached, it says something that we need to bring into our lives, that little bit of the gospel that's really for us, it's all for nothing if we are not there. Being persistent in our worship, persistent in our service to other people, making that a part of our lives, regularly, to be persistent in our study. My goodness, there's no better way we benefit more from persistence than persistence in actually thinking about and studying through coming to worship and through reading the Bible, studying God's Word. There's often times when you read something in the Bible and you read it the first time and you say, and then you read it 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6 more times over the course of years, and you think something else, and then maybe it's the 20th time or the 100th time that you read that same verse that it's absolutely going to speak to. It's going to make a real difference in your life at that moment. And the only reason is you have to get through those first 99 before you get to that 100th moment when the aha comes, when you get a little something from this verse that's actually going to change you and help you be closer to God. Absolutely. Persistence in study, persistence in Christian fellowship. Not just doing fellowship every once in a while, but making sure you have a group of friends where you can express your faith, where you can be inspired by their faith, and have those chances to socialize with those folks on a regular basis. And that's where we're a great advantage for that, because so many of us, we have friends outside of this church who show their Christian faith so admirably, maybe at work, or maybe within our circle of friends. And so being able to do all of these things, of course, be persistent in these ways, and we get closer to God because of that persistence. But Jesus is particularly talking here about prayer. and being persistent in our prayer. You know, Jesus isn't just saying this, he practices this throughout his ministry. He practices this kind of persistence in prayer. He goes to God in prayer frequently. It is his habit, the scripture says, to pray. And if Jesus, if God's Son, needs prayer in order to feel close to God, how much more do we require that and need that in order to feel close to God? Be able to have that time when we can bring our concerns to God, bring our joys to God. You know, one thing that happens when you make prayer a regular part of your life is you begin thinking and looking for the things to give thanks for. Because that's an important part of prayer, is giving thanks. It's so you become more mindful of all the blessings in your life. And the more you do it, the more regular you are with your prayer, the more mindful you are of all the wonderful things that we have to be thankful for that we do tend to take for granted. So it's a great opportunity for us to become wealthy in our spiritual lives. To be spiritually wealthy, because that takes persistence. Just as it does with money in this world. There are people with such a talent for making money, and they can through their persistence. And I guarantee you, nobody makes money unless it's just given to them. Nobody actually makes a lot of money without persistence. Absolutely. They need that. And there are people that are so talented, so fortunate, and so persistent that one person over the course of their life can make more than $1 billion through persistence and through those other things. But persistence is an important element. Friends, when we give our persistence to matters of faith, to prayer, to worship, to study, we can be the equivalent of spiritual billionaires. Spiritual billionaires, but that takes persistence. To lay up such great treasures in heaven, right, that have a real impact. And the great thing is, the way that wealth works in this world is the more you get, really, it can have a real bad impact on your family, on your friendships. Not so with spiritual wealth. You have spiritual wealth in your life, and it's going to benefit not only you, it's going to benefit those around you. It's going to benefit those you love. It's going to benefit those you work with. It's going to just trickle out all into this world, and everyone around you, and even those strangers, will be touched by it. So there it is. It's actually very simple, this lesson of the persistent widow. Never give up. Never give in. In all of those best things in your life, the very best efforts that you're making right now, don't give up. Don't give in. Keep at it, and especially when it comes to prayer, continue to pray. And I'll guarantee you, if you do, it will benefit you. It will benefit your health. It will benefit your family, those that you work with, your circle of friends. And as I said, even the strangers that encounter you along the way are going to benefit by this kind of persistence. And because of that, wherever you end up in life, wherever life takes you, even those dark moments, even those difficult moments, since you have had this persistence in your lives, even when you face tough times, you're going to feel that connection that you have with God. All those treasures, all that structure of faith that you have built up, it is going to strengthen you in those moments. So even in the toughest times, even in the hardest times, you're going to recognize all of the blessings that God has given you. You're going to be thankful for each and every one of them. And you are going to have the strength to know that the greatest blessing you receive, the one you've really been strengthening, is your relationship with God. And you will go through whatever you are facing with the confidence that nothing in all creation can separate you from that love of God. For that I say, praise be to God. Amen. Let's bow. Loving God, we do give thanks for all your many blessings, and we do ask that you help us to be persistent in our lives. Lord, help us to do all of those things that you call us to do, of all the Christian disciplines of service and prayer and study and fellowship. Lord, worship here. Help us to be persistent in these ways so that we can grow and be strengthened and have our lives be all truly abundant in all the ways that really matter. Lord, help us to be persistent in all the good that we do, whether it's caring for a loved one, whether it's being a parent, whether it's being a teacher, whatever our profession